Awesome. Well, I'm super excited. I am honored to be amongst so many amazing people on this panel. They had to add an extra chair because we rolled deep, Mike said. So we're talking about one of my favorite things to talk about besides girl power, which is rentals. So rentals, when I got started working at RentSpree 4 years ago, I would talk to people and I'd be like, hey, I want to talk to you about our rental solution. And they'd say, wow, yeah, that's great. We don't really care that much about rentals. And now over the years that has evolved and it is a conversation we really can't avoid. So with that, we're going to talk about standardization, data, and how to make rentals more accessible. So if you don't mind, we'll go down the line. If you guys don't mind introducing yourselves, we'll start with you, Mike.
My name is Michael Lucarelli, the CEO and the co-founder of RentSpree. A pleasure to work with all these folks for many years, and amazing to have Lauren on the team. But thank you guys. Happy to be here today.
John Breault, Vice President of MLS for statewide MLS and Vice Chair for the RESO board.
Sara Fogg, Director of Product and Implementation for PrimeMLS.
Marsha, Buice, COO for First Multiple Listing Service.
Amazing. Well, to get us started, Marsha, I'm going to kick the first question over to you. Why rentals and why now?
Why rentals and why now? Well, we'll start with some stats. First of all, the average age of the first-time home buyer right now is 38, and that's gone up incrementally over the last 20 years. In addition, 1/3 of U.S. households are renters. So in taking those facts in consideration, and looking at, why are they renting? Affordability, being able to be flexible, those are some of the reasons among others. And I can speak from experience. I have 2 adult children who have not so recently moved out. They are both renters. So with that, let's keep those rentals coming. Let's keep those adult children in a viable solution. And so there are many reasons. My one child, definitely affordability is part of the issue, but the other child is trying to determine, not quite ready to settle down, not quite ready to have children, and we're seeing where a lot of these adults, younger adults, are pushing that further and further out, and they need solutions. And rentals is a perfect solution. And I've been looking at some stats in our market, and I just looked year over year recently and noticed that our total rental inventory just went up by 22% from September of this year over last year.
Yeah, you don't want those kids back in your basement, right?
No. We need a movement. Who's with me?
You could charge them rent.
How many people in the audience don't want their kids back in their basement? Yeah. Well, Sara, I know rentals have been a big part of PrimeMLS. They've been there since the beginning of Prime. Can you talk to us a little bit about the evolution of then to now?
Sure. We came on board at 1994. Rentals were a part of our system, but I liken it sort of to the military. When you think of the services, you think Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and most of you forget about the Coast Guard. That's kind of how it is in real estate. You've got residential, land, commercial, multifamily, and then rentals out on the side, and sometimes forgotten. And there wasn't a big push, and it wasn't until 7-8 years ago when Michael and Nishay came online, and they got in front of us all here at RESO, and they started talking about the potential. It's this untapped potential that you have in your markets that no one's touching, and how do we engage and work with them to do that? And then about 3 or 4 years ago, with RESO, there was actually a sub-work group that they put together and made standards, so that we have standards for rentals as we're sitting there and feeding this information out. So it's evolved to the point, and I know our MLS is in the same place, to where our rentals are rising. And the more that we work with these partners and get it out there and do education, as we're working forward towards this, the better that it gets. Because the reality is if you can get a renter, then you probably are going to convert them over to a buyer when it comes time for them to actually own a home.
Yeah, well, John, I know we were chatting yesterday and you said rentals have grown an astronomical amount in your market over the last 10 years.
It's true. So how many MLSs are in the room? And how many, do you all allow rent? How many have rentals in their system currently? So we've had rentals for a long time, and in preparation for this, of course, what you do is you would look at your data and examine what we have, and 10-year trend, 117% increase in the active rental inventory, and from the last 5 years, it was 160%. So we had a dip with 2020, and because of rental demand, I guess, was so high, so we have a lot of rentals. They're the 1/3 of our active inventory is rentals, and when I look at all my property types, the second, single family is the highest, but rentals are the second highest. So, I invite you guys you should look at your data just out of curiosity and see. I mean, I was sort of surprised. I expected, a single family, condo, whatever, everything rentals to be down here, but they're the second highest listing inventory we have right now. So there's a need, a demand. It's an exciting opportunity. I think some of it may be, you could say, the silver lining of the NAR settlement was with the removal of the cooperative compensation requirement. I think it's opened the door for opportunities with rentals in the commercial market for MLSs to expand. And so we're shifting our focus to that a bit and look at what we can do as an MLS to embrace this and provide more value in the rental market.
I think that's a great point, John. And one of the big things that we always heard from agents is that they were hesitant to sometimes add rentals into the system because of exactly what you mentioned, which was the fear of having to give up some of that compensation at times. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is a really big moment for us as the MLS community and industry to really wrap our arms around MLS rentals and embrace that and bring them into the system, just because you guys, as MLSs, we want to see MLSs empowered as the source of truth for rental data. And it's not the case today, but I think it's something where we're seeing more and more of the steam being built up, and it's what we need to be working towards because of how important rentals are to consumers and to the lives of agents today.
Yeah, one thing that we talk a lot about at RentSpree is, a lot of people bought their homes back in like 2020, 2021. They have a 2% on their mortgage, 2-ish%, and they're being forced with, okay, well, I got a new job, or we had a baby, we need to move. Should I sell my home, or should I become a first-time landlord and start renting that property out? So it's definitely becoming more of a conversation. And with that, standardization is super important. So John, do you mind talking to us a little bit about standardization and how that could help take rentals to the next level?
Yeah, so all we have to do is look back in time at what MLSs have done in the residential for sale market, right? And anybody who was at the international MLS, I think we take for granted a lot of times what the value of MLS is. I mean, I know we're in the industry, we know there's value, but you forget what things used to be like. And so at the international forum, it was just, sort of brought it again back to the forefront of, oh my God, these people are going through what we went through, I don't know, 150 years ago, whatever it is. And so to bring structure to that marketplace. And so now there's an opportunity right now, the rental market is fragmented. There are certainly quality control issues, right? I mean, you can go, anyone who's ever tried to buy anything on things like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, it's a crapshoot. So, what's one of the big value props of MLS is it's that data integrity, right, and the rules enforcement. And so if we can get more rental inventory and more quality data and then become that funnel out to the world, I think it improves the whole ecosystem, the whole rental ecosystem. But one thing I think we need to do and look at is there is still a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, or a round peg in a square hole. I don't know how that expression goes, but they're different, right? I mean, MLS was built on sort of residential sales. So we're looking at things, do we need as many fields for rentals, or do we need as many required fields? Or should we treat them differently? Just because they're in the MLS doesn't mean they have to be treated exactly the same way as every other property type. There are opportunities for us to really focus in on that market and tweak it so that we can give them the best experience and then hopefully get more rental data in and then be the conduit as it flows out.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, we took a look at when, we talk about rentals on a day-to-day basis is when you look into the MLS, what agents have access to when it comes to insights around for sale. they have a ton. And then when you look at rentals, there's kind of a big gap between the two. So Mike, do you mind talking to us a little bit about the barriers and why the rental data just isn't as much in the MLS?
Yeah, and this is a very, very common question that comes up a lot, which is where can we see the information for the rental market? How can we understand what's going on and having that be accurate and a complete look at that market where agents are operating in? And we are so fortunate, like John mentioned, on the for sale side, because this exists and there is very clear and definitive and accurate information that MLSs have where you can answer those questions on the for sale side. What's the median home price? How are days on market changing over time? But as Lauren mentioned, this doesn't exist on the rental side, and that's because these rentals aren't coming into the MLS. And if I were to break that down, it's two pieces. Number one, we are not doing a good job getting single-family rentals into the system, which they should be already. So if agents are working with rentals, they should be adding the rentals into the MLS. We should be harboring that data, governing it, making sure that it's accurate. And the second piece of that, which is a little bit more tricky, is the multifamily data. So still about 1/3 of the market is comprised of multifamily rental data and multifamily rental inventory. And this is something where we need to build bridges between our MLS industry and the multifamily providers out there. This is something we've talked about many times over the years, but bringing this data in and establishing those relationships so we can provide a fulsome picture of the rental market is going to be really important for agents to be able to go forth and find opportunities, land clients, and really move forward within the rental space.
Yeah, Sarah, go ahead.
I also think it's the education portion. I know that I never got my license, but I did go through the course in New Hampshire because I couldn't hold my license. There was no point. But there's nothing about rental in that. It's all about buying and selling. So where does the education come for the agents to learn how to even manage rentals?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a sticking point too that needs to be addressed at some point. There needs to be some kind of a standard set for those as well. And not every rental agent, depending on your state, has to be licensed. So I think that comes into play as well.
Yeah, for sure. Marsha, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just piggybacking off what both John and Sarah were saying. It's really important, as said earlier, 1/3 of U.S. households are renters. And it's really important for our members, for us to help them engage with these clients because eventually they want to nurture these individuals in becoming a first-time home buyer. So we need to be the source of truth and aggregate the rentals, be able to get those into our databases and syndicate them out so that the public can find them. And again, we can have our members work on them to be those first-time home buyers. It's really important that we aggregate the data, but to what Michael just said, you know, we need the insights, we need the metrics, we need this information. Just don't throw the rental out there with little bits and bytes. Let's treat it as we do residential properties and aggregate as much information as we can. So make it, you know, important part of our market. It is, it should be.
But, you know, if I to piggyback on that, because one of the feedback I heard in my market is they didn't want as many fields, right? So, I mean, I agree that because obviously the more information, the better quality, but you also want to make sure that you're responding to the needs of your users, right? Because
Absolutely.
if you make it too much, then they're just less inclined to put it in.
Or
So,
maybe targeted fields.
yeah, I mean, right.
Specific
Well, that's
for
you need
rental
to get from
instead.
them what is it you want? What's of value to you? And then, you know, build.
Absolutely.
So how many, I mean, MLSs out there, how many of you just copied your residential, slapped rental on it, and changed like 2 fields? There's more to rental than just that.
Yeah, and I think, Marsha, you bring up something really important, which is the consumer, right? And one thing that I really like to lean on is rentals. That's the only time an agent knows that their clients have to transact again. The lease is going to be up, and they either need to rent again or have a conversation on purchasing. And a lot of people, like in the millennial demographic, don't even know that they have the ability to purchase. So how to use rentals for the long-term picture on like the rent-to-own journey. But my next question for you guys is around fraud. So consumers are very trepidatious when it comes to data that's out there. You know, it's kind of been like the wild, wild west for rentals, like you said, on Craigslist, lots of fraudulent data. So Marsha, can you talk to us a little bit about fraud and kind of how to mitigate that?
Yeah, I have a couple stories. First one is I do have a neighbor whose son was looking into a rental and having access to all this wonderful information. They were looking into it and thought they were talking to a homeowner, and I'm like, oh, let me just look into our tax database. It wasn't the homeowner. And so I was able to share the information, but they're going to sites that aren't the source of truth. We should be. So that's why it's really important that we, like I said, work to educate and get the rentals into our system. And it's really important for risk mitigation. We started back in, I'm thinking now, it's going back a while, 2017, we offered our first tenant screening. And in 2021, we brought on, it's important, so we brought on another newer, innovative system. And we have seen rentals go up incrementally since then. Matter of fact, I just went back, John was talking about going back 10 years, and I went back 5 years saying, gosh, let me go back a little further. How much has our total rental inventory gone up? And it was like 260% in 5 years. And I thought that was just, wow. I was shocked. I didn't realize it was that high. And so with all that said, again, risk mitigation is really important to have these tenant screening for our members. They, again, we're the source of truth. They need to be the source of truth. But I just read an article like 2 weeks ago, and it was about Greystone, and they are, most of you know, probably a large rental management company. They're nationwide, and this is in my market, in the Atlanta market, Atlanta and metro area. Out of 44,000 units they had applications on, half were fraudulent. I was awestruck. I was shocked at that statistic. So we need to have these tools. We need to offer our members the tools they need and help protect their clients and the landlords. So it's really important.
And there are a couple challenges also that we've seen of getting these high quality MLS listings out there to where consumers can find them, because the reality is that there are fraudulent listings out there. There are listings on Craigslist where you're trying to scam renters, but getting listings from the MLS out to where consumers are looking is critical for us at this point as well. And it's like, why not? Why can't we make sure that this is happening? And this does actually come back to standards, because there's, believe it or not, a wide variety of different rental data standards that are out there. And you look at the MITS 4 standard, there's also HotPad standard, and there's so many different types, and it doesn't always align. And this is something that we're honestly just scratching the surface of being able to talk about as an industry. But we need to make sure that we have good standardization, so it really makes it easy for these listings to get to the places where consumers are searching, which it's a little bit different in some cases compared to where consumers are searching for sale listings. Rental sites are a little bit different. There are niche rental sites that are out there, and there's a lot that we can be doing to make sure that we're standardizing across the board and making it easy for MLS listings to get to all the places where consumers are searching in this day and age.
For sure, yeah, I already see you ready to talk. I know distributing listings have been important to you for a long time.
It has. Actually, Michael and I talked last year because he was running a different idea that he was thinking about doing, and I'm like, well, what you can do for me is build a distribution center or some kind of a distribution system, because it's different than what needs to happen for residential to hit these other sites out there. And less than a year later, he was like, guess what?
We listened.
You did.
Ask and you shall receive. So my last question for you guys, and we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but one of the #1 traps that agents fall into is they don't follow up with their renters at the end of the lease. And with so many renters out there, we want to help them on their rent-to-own journey and become a home buyer. Can you talk to us, we can start with you, Mike, but a little bit about the importance of nurturing these renters along their home buying journey?
Yeah, so I always say the renter of today is the buyer of tomorrow, and even in some cases, the landlord of next week. And the reality is that there are a lot of renters out there, and renters are, at times, they can be unpredictable. They're renting here, they're there, they're moving around. I'm a renter myself, so I can speak to that for sure.
Me too.
Yeah, so, so it can be a little bit of a challenge for agents to really keep track of renters that they've worked with in the past, but it's really important because agents will easily overlook renters that they've dealt with in the past and they'll look for leads elsewhere. But really, if you're being diligent as an agent, we do want to unlock the ability for them to understand which renters have they worked with before, when are their leases going to be up. Let's look at some of their financial information so that we can be more predictive and empower agents to understand who should they reach out to as a renter, when should they reach out to, and how can they deliver a value-add message to those consumers so that you increase the likelihood that you're going to help that consumer with something instead of just trying to sell them your services. You can actually help them understand, hey, here's what you might need to do to afford to purchase a place. Here's some steps you can take. Oh, and when that time comes, I'm going to be happy to help you with that. So we're just, I think, scratching the surface on bridging that gap between converting a renter today to a buyer tomorrow, but it's something that's ongoing, and these renters are going to convert to buyers at some point inevitably in the future anyway. So why not make sure that the agent is at the center stage when that happens?
For sure, yeah. We have a story about one of our coworkers. He was renting in San Diego, and he said, I loved my agent. They were amazing. They got me into my rental property, and he said, I'm ready to buy. And he said, if that agent reaches out to me one more time, I will use them to purchase my home. For the life of me, I just can't remember who they are. I looked through my email, I can't find them. But when my lease is coming up, if they reach out to me, I'll use them to purchase. And he said they never reached out to me again. And so I had to go online and find a new agent. But that is the case for a lot of tenants. And it goes back to just setting the agent up as the industry expert and helping educate renters on just what their options are. So with that, any last thoughts you guys want to share with the crowd on rentals? Marsha, I know you had something.
Yeah, well, you and Michael alluded to this, but education is important, and we need to educate, the renters, the public, but also we need to educate our members, and we've begun working on a 3-hour CE course. We only have the outline, and we got to get it RESO approved, but we are working to do a virtual 3-hour CE course about rentals, how to get into, help our agents help those to get into the rentals and educate them on the tools and services available. So that's something we're actively working on, and so it'll be first foray into education for rentals for our MLS. We have been offering, and we've got great vendors who partner with us, you being one of them, offering webinars, but we figured it'd be a nugget to offer a CE course if they can come in for that 3-hour, get their CE, and get the education they need to be able to use the tools to help out these individuals get into these rental units.
Yeah. We're partnering, bringing tools on board to help with the nurturing, help with the education, distribution, give those insights to the renters, and hopefully as those webinars come online, we can be educating some of the agents out there, especially some of the ones, because you never know how the market's going to go, right? There may not be as many homes to sell, and they may have to switch and shift gears from what they've done in the past, and we're going to look to provide them the avenue to teach them on how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I would just say embrace the opportunity for rental listings. If you have them, don't just, it's not necessarily mission accomplished. Maybe assemble a group of users, a little user group, and just sort of get some feedback on what could you be doing better. There's an opportunity here. Just because you have rentals doesn't mean you're necessarily knocking it out of the park. So take a look at it, see if there aren't opportunities to improve what you have. Look at your rules maybe, some of the policies around it, and see how you can tweak those to provide better service.
And I'll say we work with about 90 MLSs, so we can see a pretty broad spectrum of how different MLSs are kind of handling MLSs rentals, what kind of strategies they have in place, and many of you have done a great job, but it's really important for us to share information and knowledge. A lot of you guys are doing great things, but there's still a lot of progress for us to make, and maybe I'll be so bold as to volunteer the time of some of these three here. They're great at with rentals in their market, and so if you guys have any questions.
And I'm going to volunteer. Somebody's going to buy a first round at the lobby bar, so I'll volunteer that.
I'll send out all their personal emails to everyone.
I'm happy to talk.
Phone numbers, home, landline,
please.
everything.
Please do, yeah. Landline. Welcome to the 1980s.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
That was a great conversation. And like Mike said, feel free to reach out to any of us here. We'll give you John's landline, and we're
Please,
happy
yep.
to talk about rentals. Thank you guys.